So I'm going to go through the isolation of R in two different ways. So bear with me. If the first explanation doesn't make sense, then make sure you wait through to the second explanation. The first thing I want you to notice is that the R squared is in the denominator here, and that's what I'm trying to isolate R. So I have to clear the fraction, and that means I'm going to multiply both sides by 1 minus R squared. So that means on this side it cancels, and on the other side I have p minus r times 1 minus r squared equals p0. P0 means initial value. It has a little subscript, the initial value of p. So for example, if p is the principal of an investment or the amount of money you put in, p0 would be the initial value. You'll see that P0, the zero subscript, is used a lot in physics and finance. Now, the R squared is inside the bracket and the P is outside. So I know I need to get rid of the capital P there. So I'm going to divide both sides by P. And it cancels on the left, and that leaves me with 1 minus R squared equals P0 over P. Next step is to isolate the R squared. I'm going to subtract 1 because I need to get rid of this 1. If I subtract 1 on this side and on this side, here it cancels and I end up with negative R squared equals P0 divided by P minus 1. Now this negative sign is the next thing to go, and I'm going to multiply everything by negative 1. The left side and the right side. So the negatives cancel and I now have a positive, and on this side I have P0 over P, and if I multiply the negative in, I have positive 1. And the last step is then to take the square root of both sides. Negative P0 over P plus 1. When you take the square root, remember that there should be plus or minus, but that's a good habit to get into. Depending on the context of the question, the negative is not a reasonable solution, which is what the case is for this one. But R equals, now you can rearrange these to be written like this. So both ways are acceptable. Now I said I was going to do this a second way, and this one is a little bit more involved, but the reason I'm going through it is because it might be the way some students have started it, and I just want to show you that it will work thinking about it differently. So the first step is the same. I'm going to multiply by 1 minus r squared, so this step is the same, and I end up with p 1 minus r squared P0. Now for some students it might be very intuitive to multiply this in, and that's fair, that's okay. Now I'm going to subtract P from both sides. So here it cancels and I end up with negative P R squared equals P0 minus P. Now I'm going to divide by negative P, and I end up with R squared equals P0 minus P over negative P. And then the last step is to take the square root of both sides. Now, it doesn't look like it's the same answer, but they are actually equivalent, and let me show you why. If I now take this fraction here and separate it into two individual fractions, in other words, do the division separately, I have P0 over negative P minus P over negative P. So I'm dividing both of these, and that leaves me with negative P0 over P plus 1, which is exactly the same as what I started with here. So just an explanation that there's many ways of tackling the same problem.